It's March 19th, 2005, and there's around 3,500 wrestling fans at the Coventry Skydome for an independent wrestling event associated with the Wrestling Channel. Just 2 weeks before WrestleMania 20, where WWE were preparing to pull the triggers on Batista and John Cena, just like Vince pulled his hamstrings, Christopher Daniels would defend the TNA X Division Championship against AJ Styles to headline this epic card featuring talent from Pro Wrestling Noah, Ring of Honor, and the FWA. So how did this come to be?
This is TWC. We bring you the most exciting action on television, 7 days a week on Sky Channel 427. Whether you like hardcore combat, technical excellence, or aerial assaults, tune into the top athletes from America, Japan, Mexico, England, Ireland, and beyond.
Just a few months earlier, in late 2004, the FWA's British Uprising 3 had drawn a very respectable 1,800 people to the same arena. With an even more loaded amount of international stars this time around, this event drew 3,500 people to better fill out the Coventry Skydome. The opening contest was a four-way with TNA's Chris Sabin and Petey Williams and the FWA's Johnny Storm and Spud, who would go on to be Drake Maverick. Spud was local to the area, which got some publicity in the Coventry press. It didn't take long before we got to the dives. At the time this was more of a novelty, and also there was 4 participants, so it wasn't quite on the level that you often see today, and what prompts Jim Ross to speak up about it.
I'd rather watch 2 old women slap my ass. Woo! That's as tough as a chunk of my ass.
When the action got back into the ring, the pace slowed down for a bit and each man was able to do something cool before Spud found himself isolated and taking a fair bit of punishment. He managed to reverse a slam into a reverse DDT, and then tagged out as the pace of the match sped back up. There were some near pins for each man before all 4 men came crashing down out of the corner with a double back suplex/superplex. Chris Sabin hit Petey Williams with a jumping spin kick and followed it up with a wicked Liger bomb. Johnny Storm hit Sabin with an incredible reverse Frankensteiner. Spud hit a satellite DDT on Johnny Storm but then got taken out by a springboard dropkick from Chris Sabin. Petey Williams then immediately followed up with the Canadian Destroyer, a move that was a novelty at the time and the live audience were pumped to see live. It was a great match to start the show. Each competitor showcased some of their best stuff and the timing with the pin sequences and the finish especially was exceptional. Next match would be a World of Sport match. World of Sport alongside TNA was the highest rated show on the Wrestling Channel. Mal Sanders took on Steve Gray with special referee Tony Scarlo. Those who have watched my Sunday uploads on the classic UK wrestling scene will know that British wrestling used to be contested under Lord Mountevan rules, which meant rounds, 2 falls, 2 submissions or a knockout to decide the winner. The other very big difference is the rule of maintaining or breaking contact of your opponent when you take him off his feet. If you break contact with your opponent when he's down, you must allow him to his feet and he has until the count of 10 to do so. And of course the backdrop to this was a heavily guided and respected maintaining of character. Jackie Pallow's book Exposing the Inner Workings of the Industry was the exception. Everyone else I can find, when the question was put to them if wrestling was fixed, answered trying to dispel such a suggestion.
This fight's fixed, in fact. I mean, you're obviously the goodie and somebody else is the baddie, but...
They're not fixed. I've been in hospital 3 times. So definitely if anybody knows they're fixed, I wish they'd come along and say to me, right, you can win tonight, I'll win tomorrow night.
The style and presentation of this wrestling fit that era perfectly, but against the backdrop of this event it didn't work out as well. The other thing was that both competitors were 20 years older than when their previous bouts had aired on television. Although they were still very impressive, they weren't as snappy and nimble as they had been 20 years earlier. Still, as the booker Alex Shane said, the match really had to be there if you're doing a show based on the Wrestling Channel, as the old World of Sport programming had been such a staple of this channel. Speaking of Alex Shane, he would appear next to interrupt a special Apter's Alley in which Bill Apter intended to give a Lifetime Achievement Award to Mick Foley, who was the most well-known name on the show. Well, arguably. More on that later. Anyhow, Alex Shane interrupted the proceedings before Mick Foley could even arrive and ragged on the live audience to loud boos. Mick Foley then did arrive to accept his award and have a bit of a verbal joust, and then after that Foley left and Alex Shane assaulted the renowned wrestling journalist and Mick's good friend, Bill Apter. The next match was Ring of Honor's showcase match between Samoa Joe and CM Punk, who had in the last year taken part in an epic trilogy where their first 2 matches ended in 1-hour draw time limits. This was 3 months before Joe debuted in TNA, so at the time seeing a show with this match on at the same bill as AJ Styles vs Christopher Daniels was really like seeing the best of both worlds. CM Punk was 5 months away from signing with the WWE and also appeared to be in the best shape he'd ever been in. When Samoa Joe was interviewed at the event for a magazine, he said something along the lines of, "When people come out for a wrestling event, they want to suspend their disbelief and get into the action, so the best thing to do as a performer was to meet them halfway, make it look credible." I think both guys did a nice job with that. Both men hit one another with several strikes and also countered one another a fair bit, showing their familiarity with one another. After hitting his dive through the rope, Samoa Joe followed up with his Ole Ole kick, the move that was birthed in the UK 3 years earlier. Back in the ring, CM Punk hit a Tornado DDT and then set Samoa Joe up for the Pepsi plunge, but Joe backdropped Punk and then hit a Hurricane Rana, followed by a lariat for a close 2 count. Punk set Samoa Joe up for another Pepsi plunge, but Samoa Joe countered it once again, this time with a muscle buster for the victory. Next up was a 6-man tag, predominantly representing Pro Wrestling Noah, as James Tighe teamed with the GHC Tag Team Champions 2 Cold Scorpio and Doug Williams to take on Tiger Emperor Kotar Suzuki, Yoshinari Ogawa and Mitsuharu Misawa, who is a Japanese legend and actually sold more tickets with his name than Mick Foley did. Misawa started out as the second wrestler to work as Tiger Mask following Satoru Sayama, before making a name for himself in All Japan Pro Wrestling and then being one of the founders of Noah. Evidently he had a following in the UK because, again, he sold more tickets when his name was announced than Mick Foley did. The highlights of the match for me were Kotar Suzuki's offense. Misawa didn't do much, but it was a novelty of seeing him live that the audience in attendance appreciated. Also a real nice, perfectly timed spot where Doug Williams countered Tiger Emperor's handspring with a German suplex, mid-air as well. Tiger Emperor never went to his feet. The finish saw another German suplex, this time Doug Williams rolling Chaos Theory German suplex, and that was the winning fall. Next match was Raven taking on Alex Shane. Alex Shane originally wanted to hire Jeff Jarrett to face Raven in what would be a brawl, having already showcased high-flying and hard-hitting action on the event. But Jarrett's fee was too high, in Shane's opinion, so Alex Shane stepped in himself. The brawl quickly went to the outside and all across the arena as Alex Shane was shoved off a flight of stairs that unfortunately wasn't captured very well by any of the cameras. Well, fair play, I bet Jeff Jarrett wouldn't have taken that. Back in the ring we saw Raven's trademark drop toe holds into a chair. Twice. Raven looked to swing the chair but the ref took it away from him, but then got booted in the face with it. This led to Shane's security jumping in and attacking Raven. Mick Foley came out to wipe them all out, and after a bit of a back and forth with Alex Shane, put on Mr. Socko in the mandible claw, leading into Raven's DDT for the victory. The main event, as I mentioned earlier, saw Christopher Daniels defending the TNA X Division Championship against AJ Styles. Daniels had won the belt only 6 days earlier at Destination X, and the two athletes were having a rivalry with a crop of fine matches in TNA and across the United States at other indies. These two had incredible chemistry, as a perfect villain versus babyface dynamic. Both men wrestled in the UK a few times before, but this was the first time they were wrestling each other over here. Christopher Daniels entered to a very underrated tune by a band named Tricky. This was a custom theme for him, but it was only used in the UK, well, only for mainly the FWA.
I am the fallen angel, this is what I am, a romantic evil, the savior of the damned.
The match started with Daniels slapping AJ across the face, then shooting him off the ropes and knocking him down with a kick. Daniels sent AJ off the ropes again, who looked to then hit his signature jump over into a drop kick. Though Daniels had it scouted, AJ Styles was still able to complete the drop kick as the loud crowd went nuts. There were loud dueling chants for both competitors. Daniels stayed on top for a while, wearing AJ down with some holds. AJ hit a backdrop, followed by a backbreaker, gut-breaker combination. Daniels regained the upper hand with his downward spiral straight into the Koji Clutch submission, which AJ Styles was able to save himself from by getting his foot on the rope. AJ sustained a German suplex, but fought out of a second attempt to hit a spinning lariat. AJ got a second wind and came off the top rope with a flying forearm, followed with a spectacular clean jump front flip dive over the top rope. Daniels was able to catch AJ with a blue thunder bomb. AJ then attempted the phenomenon. Daniels countered the first attempt, but AJ got it set up again and delivered it. Daniels got in the Uranagi Slam and followed it up with the BME, the best moonsault ever. Both men were sort of out on their feet and trading strikes. AJ got the Pele in, they went back to trading strikes. The good thing is that they sold it. They were fatigued and exhausted, but digging deep. This looked really credible compared to some of the strike exchanges you see these days. AJ went for the clash, Daniels fought to get out of it, and AJ fought to be able to execute the move, which led to Daniels landing on his feet and going straight into the Angel's Wings. What a transition, and a thrilling near fall. Loud chants of "This is awesome" rang out across the Coventry Skydome. Daniels went for the last right, AJ snap-med him out, then transitioned to Crucifix Pin into the Styles Clash that he hit this time for another thrilling near fall. Finally, Daniels managed to execute the last rites for the victory and to retain the X Division Championship. That was a bloody brilliant match. They absolutely made the most of kicking out of one another's finishes and didn't follow up by doing an overdo of big dramatic kickouts. That's as near to perfection as it gets. I rather like that they went with the rather ballsy finish of a villain, Christopher Daniels, winning cleanly as well. The commentary team do a fine job of getting across what a fine contest it was, and rightfully so. The show ends with both men hesitantly ending with a drawn-out handshake. It was clear these two would continue to go at it somewhere down the line in the near future, and that they would in some more classic matches, including the triple threat they'd had with Samoa Joe for the X Division Championship at Unbreakable, which has now become iconic. So that was the Wrestling Channel's epic event. The channel didn't last very long. I think that's because there's only so much wrestling one can take. I love wrestling, but even I would get burnt out trying to follow every company that was on this channel. But in the short time it existed, it provided the first stages in TNA's meteoric rise in the UK, and eventually getting onto Challenge TV and packing out Wembley Arena amongst other large venues on UK tours. And World of Sport also gained a new following, which continues to this day now thanks to streaming such as these. And of course the subject of this video, this amazing show took place on the Wrestling Channel and was aired completely free of charge. For that alone I'm thankful. Thanks for watching the video. Please give it a like, comment and share on social media platforms, and subscribe with the added bell so you receive the notifications in your description box. As the weeks go by, I'll also be looking at other big super shows that took place in the UK, including the follow-up to this, Universal Uproar, and 1PW. Peace out.